welcome back to the 6.5 Summit. I'm Shelley Kramer, one of the founding partners here at Futurum Research, and on behalf of my team at Futurum and the team at Moor Insights and Strategy, welcome. We're glad to have you. In this spotlight session, Patrick Moorhead of Moor Insights talks with Vittorio Viarengo, the Vice President of CrossCloud Solutions for VMware, and their conversation today revolves around multi-cloud strategies, which is on everyone's mind, and the common challenges that organization faces. Vittorio also offers insights on the applications that run on VMware and where that's headed in the future. Let's go see what he has to say.
Vittorio, it's great to see you, and I'm so excited that we have VMware for the second year in a row at the 6.5 Summit.
It is our pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so you and I have met on multiple briefing calls. Hopefully we'll meet at the next VMworld event face-to-face. But so we know each other, but can you talk about what you do for VMware?
Yes, I've been with the company on and off 14 years. In the first kind of phase of our prestigious history, and then I came back to help the company as we enter in what we call our third act of the company to become, actually, let's say in customer terms, to help our customers navigate the challenges of this multi-cloud world that we live in.
Yeah, it's great that we're here talking about multi-cloud, and it was just probably 5 years ago that the industry was debating hybrid cloud. But the good news is that's behind us, right? The whole industry is in on hybrid cloud, and now we're really figuring out how to do multi-cloud. And probably a good place to start is, what is VMware's multi-cloud strategy?
So if you look at the evolution of IT, and there's always every few years, there is a shift in the architecture. And in my experience, that shift in the architecture is driven by the application stack, right? Applications drive the business, right? We build new applications to accelerate our growth by providing our customers with new digital experiences, or we build applications to optimize workflow to save money. And so every time the application architecture changes, the whole stack, the whole IT stack follows. And so over the last 5 years, we've seen the emergence of cloud as the primary computing platform, right? We see that there are like 48% increase in applications in the cloud over the next few years, with a slight decline on-prem. And so if you look at these applications, where are they built? They're built in the public cloud, because that's the path of least resistance. Developers get a virtual machine on EC2, on AWS, of Azure, or a Kubernetes cluster, more likely these days, and they go out and build applications. And when you look at that, it turns out that 75% of our customers use 2 or more clouds. And why? Because they want to use the different innovation from various hyperscalers. Now, of course, the private cloud is not going away. That's where we run our mission-critical applications. And then you see the emergence of edge. And so when we look at this over the last few years, we realize that while multi-cloud has all these advantages, you go fast, you get all this innovation, developers develop application fast, but each of these stacks build their own development environment, their own management environment. So it creates a lot of cost and complexity. And we believe this is the architecture of the future and the most heterogeneous environment that we have ever seen. And this is where VMware comes in, right? If you think about what we do at our core, we have a DNA of making things that were not designed to work together. And so last year we launched VMware CrossCloud Services, which is a cloud-native set of services that allow our customers to leverage a new level of abstraction to simplify how they build, run, manage, secure, and access any application natively across any cloud. And that's the core of our multi-cloud strategy.
Yeah, I've written this before in my research. I think your strategy is spot on, and I do like where it emanated from, and that was from the application development environment. And I think your strategy is unique for what it's worth. I think it'd be good to start off with some challenges, though, that are out there. I mean, multi-cloud is not mature. I feel like as an industry, we just got around to saying this is what we're going after. It took a lot to get here, right? We had to get to the point of transportable VMs, containers, and things like this. But can you talk about some of the challenges that they're having and why they're having them?
Yes. Let's take the very essence of what we're talking about, which is application development. Today's developers, 63% of companies have Kubernetes in production, right? Why? Because Kubernetes is it's the new lingua franca. I mean, containers and Kubernetes, a new lingua franca of the native cloud. And one would think, okay, Kubernetes is Kubernetes. Well, the reality is that if you go on Azure, you have one Kubernetes distribution. You go AWS, so AKG, AKS, they're all slightly different. So if you are a company, a large bank, you end up with 2 or 3 of these environments out there. And it takes to build a microservice application and take it to production is around 50 steps. You multiply 50 steps by multiple stacks, forget it. So as an example, one of our cross-cloud services is Tanzu. And Tanzu allows our customers to quickly set up any Kubernetes distribution. So we kind of hide the complexity and the differences between the stacks so that you say, hey, I want to deploy Kubernetes. Great. We set up the environment. Now that the environment is set up, then the developers doesn't have to learn all these differences. They focus on what they do, which is writing code. Then you put that code on a single pipeline, and then at the deployment time, you decide, oh, I want to deploy on AWS, or I want to deploy on Azure. As an example, Cerner, one of our customers and partners, they went all in on AWS, and their developers were working and using Tanzu. And later on, they wanted to move that applications to Azure. And literally within 4 hours, they switched the deployment environment, a couple of configuration steps, boom, deploy. This is the type of advantages you get by creating this abstraction layer above all these differences in the cloud.
Yeah, it's funny. Sometimes people mistake that all containers can be transportable and can be taken everywhere, but that's just not the case. So what you're bringing to the table is a kind of a higher level of portability that I know is valuable to people, because nobody wants to get locked in to any certain infrastructure or any certain private cloud or public cloud orientation. So one of the biggest points of value for enterprises that are looking at really leaning into multi-cloud is, hey, who are other people who are successfully executing on a multi-cloud strategy? Can you talk about some of the highlights of some of your customers who are doing this?
Yeah, there are many. And to your point, talking about multi-cloud, we're just at the beginning, right? So the way we're looking at it, if you have your private cloud and one public cloud, you're already in a multi-cloud world. We don't even call it hybrid anymore, because if you're a company that wants to succeed in the future, you better transform your internal IT to a cloud operating environment to begin with. But we find that the customers, like in financial services especially, right, the customers that tend to push the envelope a little more, they're out there with multiple clouds in production. As an example, S&P Global. It's a great example. S&P Global, sorry, is a great example of this, where they use Tanzu to accelerate their development across multiple clouds, just like I said, similar to Cerner. But then there is another path that they took, which is basically, and this is such a great use case. Well, it's a bad use case. The circumstances are bad, but they had shut down their data center in Belarus, right, for obvious reason. And using VMware Cloud, which is basically the idea of having our vSphere stack running on all the hyperscaler natively, that they could literally move entire data center to another cloud within a couple of weekends. So think about the power of that, right? Because you're running the same environment in your private cloud and on AWS, Azure, and Google, they could literally vMotion their applications without disruption to another data center. So that's a great example of a customer who's using both our traditional stack, we have VMware Cloud, to move their data center around, as well as using Tanzu as a way to accelerate their application development across modern application development natively using Tanzu. And let me add something to that. So there is this misconception that our multi-cloud strategy hinges on our hypervisor, and we dropped that religion some time ago, because we realized that to add value in the public cloud, we need to embrace the standards and the way that developers build applications today, which is native microservices and Kubernetes. So while VMware Cloud is a great way to modernize your architecture, move to the cloud, have this environment for your traditional applications, we also have made investment and we embraced the native cloud for application development.
Yeah, it was. I remember when you first got on stage and talked about your huge investments into containers and some of the acquisitions that you made, I almost fell off of my chair, given that you essentially invented the whole notion of virtual machines. I used to work for an infrastructure, a chip provider when you did that, but to be able to take such a hard turn, I think was very admirable, but also very pragmatic and smart. Instead of digging in to virtualized machines only, you move forward. I think that was good. Now, there are tens and literally millions of your virtual machines out there that are supporting applications. Where do those go? Do they get lifted and shifted to a different environment on bare metal? Do they get refactored into containers? I mean, I know some CIOs that I talk to have 5,000 applications that are sitting on VMware technology today.
Look, first of all, we're very proud of that, right? We run 90 million applications for our customers, which has shaped the enterprise pedigree that we have, right? And we bring that to everything we do. But what we see, the lift and shift, it doesn't really add much value, right? Sure, in the case of S&P Global, they have to get out of the data center. Sure, you lift and shift, you go there. There are use cases where that makes sense. But what we see our customers do, and we help them with that, and our partners do as well, is to look at your applications and put them in one of these different categories. One is a legacy application, still important. I'll give you a definition of legacy that a customer once told me. Legacy, stuff that works. Anyways, that was funny and insightful. But so if you have a legacy application, you've optimized, it runs great, just keep it there, right? You optimize it. You don't have to evolve it over time. It's great. You have another application that has components that are useful for new type of workflow. For example, you have something that gives you the average house price given by zip code that is embedded within an application. Okay, let's take this application, turn it to microservices, and then put it in the cloud so that new workflows, new application can use it. So you're taking and refactoring it. The other one is being able to split it down to microservices. The other way is to modernize the application and bring it to the cloud so that you get better level of service. So you run your application. Some applications will disappear, right? As you move to the cloud, you can say, okay, you know what, we're going to use a SaaS service. So really, it's and one thing that again, I've been here a long time, and I've run engineering team here in this company, and I have a good sense of the DNA, right? We have a very pragmatic approach to things. We understand that customers are at different stages of the journey. And if you look at our multi-cloud strategy, it's designed so that we can catch them wherever they are and have this pragmatic approach. Hey, because if you're a cloud provider, right, you don't make any money until you get one of these applications to run on your cloud, right? For us to say, look, keep those applications that run well on-prem, modernize the application, bring them to any cloud that makes sense for you, and or use and use whatever cloud makes sense for your business.
It sounds very pragmatic and customer centric, I have to say. And I know, I don't use those words loosely because everybody says they're customer centric, but it seems like you're really giving your customers a good roadmap. Question for you, Vittorio. Can they find this kind of step-by-step procedure on your website? Is that something that you offer through consulting services? How do they do the double click on that?
So we have a service that and tools that allow that we use to engage with our customers. We basically run this crawl in their infrastructure, and we build a visual map of their customers' applications and their dependencies. So then they have the data to say, okay, these are the applications that I want to move, and we give them advice around that. But also, it makes sure that if you're moving an application, you also move all the pieces of that application that that application relies on, so you don't get stranded pieces of application out there. And then we sit down with them, we build a roadmap of how they're going to go to this multi-cloud journey, and we help them with tools and professional service as needed. And then, of course, we have one of the things that has been talked about, and again, part of that DNA, our CEO likes to talk about it as we are the Switzerland of IT. Now, we have a relationship with all southbound, with all the hyperscaler, right? Then we have northbound, we have a bunch of ISVs that build to our APIs, so they don't have to build to each stack, they can build to our stack, and we create that level of abstraction. And then we have MSP, managed service providers, and partners that implement this technology for our customers. And so we are very we've are very uniquely placed in the RT architecture to add that neutral value to our customers and our partners.
I saved the hardest question for last. Usually I like to spring it on you in the beginning, but there is this perception and talk that VMware solutions are too expensive to use in the cloud. How would you respond to that?
It's a huge misconception, and I like to address it too. So this is when we talk about VMware Cloud, right? When using our hypervisor and run it on multiple clouds to run those enterprise applications, and as you're moving to the cloud and refactoring and modernizing them. The first misconception is VMware Cloud is a native service on AWS, Azure, IBM, all the clouds. It's a native service, bare metal, right? And then the thing that people don't realize is that when you're buying a basic public cloud service, you don't get memory over commit, the shared storage, enterprise storage, stretch cluster, and storage compression. There are a lot of enterprise level services that you don't get in the basic service. When you're buying VMware Cloud, pretty much at the same price, you get all that. And then if you combine that with the fact that you don't have to refactor your applications, you move into the cloud, that's in average, according to a study that we did with IDC, a 58% better ROI than going native. So not only we're not more expensive, we are cheaper. Actually, I like to use that term. We have a much better and cost-effective way of running enterprise class applications in the cloud.
No, I love it. And I'm going to do a little bit more research on that myself. Thankfully, I was not one who wrote that or talked about that, but I really appreciate you addressing it. I thought we had to bring this up. So, Vittorio, I really appreciate you coming on and talking about multi-cloud, and I'm sure this will inspire your customers or potential customers to check out VMware when it comes to multi-cloud. I do think you're in a unique position where you are between the on-prem OEMs and the public cloud services and the development environments out there. And in one way, shape, or form, customers have to bet on something, right? And you just have to bet on, based on, what's portable, what has a future, and what the cost is. And I think what you're offering is very provocative, and I am looking forward to learning more at VMware Explore. Okay, not VMworld, but VMware Explore. Are we going to hear some great new stuff there?
Well, yeah, of course, we always keep lots of goodies to announce and showcase at our user conference. And the name change signal a new path for us as we embracing the public cloud, multi-cloud, and also this talking about unique position. I think what is very differentiated for us, besides the fact that we have that enterprise credibility and pedigree of having run all this application for so long. But if you think about the multi-cloud world, there are tons of great companies that are providing point solutions. Yeah. You have Snowflake, Atlassian, HashiCorp for management. You have security specialists and so on. So providing multi-cloud solution, but point solution. Then you have hyperscalers that provide a platform approach with the application development, management, security, but for one stack. And so we believe that we are the only company out there that is looking at the multi-cloud world with a platform approach, right? So end-to-end, but that works consistently across multiple cloud. And I think that requires a level of investment and DNA that only VMware has right now.
I'm just going to say it flat out. If you're an enterprise who buys into multi-cloud, you have to bet in on a lingua franca. And there's literally only maybe a few companies that can offer this. And VMware is one of those. So very nice talking to you, Vittorio. Thank you so much for educating folks here on the 6.5 Summit. And hopefully we can meet up at Explore.
Yeah, I can't wait to see you back in person, and thank you for having us. This was a true pleasure.